This is where the money's at. What's up, guys? Sam from Rad Junk here, and today we're going to be talking about an expensive hobby, that being pinball. So, a lot of people don't know just how expensive pinball is, and you know, people all the time are like, why don't you get these new pinball machines at the bar? Get more pinball all the time. And I would love to, but it's freaking expensive, Sharon. So I can't. I mean, I can, but not all the time. So I'm gonna give you guys a cost breakdown of all the pinball machines that I have, and you know, we're just gonna talk about the dollar signs here. So we're just going to be talking about modern pinball because my current lineup, the oldest machine in here was made in like 2017. I do have more older machines, both at home and in my warehouse, but none of them are on the floor right now, so I'm not going to factor that in, even though I did spend money on those. Because, you know, in my warehouse, I probably have 10 more machines, but we're just going to talk about what is currently in Rad Bar right now, price-wise. So, you know, I'm going to give you the rundown of the machines and maintenance and cost breakdown on what I have spent on our current lineup so far. So I'm going to be using Stern as a big example for a lot of stuff, just because Stern is the biggest distributor of pinball games in the modern age. If you're going anywhere that has modern pinball, chances are they're probably mostly Stern machines. You know, we've got some Chicago gaming machines as well, and one for Barrels of Fun. But, you know, I'm probably going to refer to Stern a lot, and I know that's not the only type of pinball machine, but it's the most common one, especially for modern pinball. So they typically put out 3 different tiers when they release a new pinball game. So for Stern, you've got the Pro, which is like the lowest tier, cheapest model. You know, and I say cheap, but they're not cheap. It's just the lowest price one. And then you've got the Premium, which is better, and you know, it normally has more features, more stuff, better artwork. And then there's limited edition, which, you know, they limit to like 300 to 500 typically, depending on the machine. It's got extra stuff, fancy, and is the most expensive. I don't have any limited edition machines. So, you know, most of my machine, you know, I've got Pros and Premiums, and then for Chicago Gaming, which is another pinball company, they make with the Classic Edition and the Special Edition, and then the Limited Edition. These are both the SE, like Special Edition models of both of these. So they've got, you know, a little bit more than just the standard. And then as far as my Sterns go, you know, this one is a Pro, this one is a Premium, this one is a Premium, this one is a Pro. My Avengers over there is a Premium, and Labyrinth is, they only made 1 tier of those because there's only 1,100 of those that got produced, so it's just kind of an enigma in itself. I don't know. So I'm just going to go down the line and tell you exactly what I spent on all of these machines. Some of these I bought at MSRP, some of them I got from other people, but yeah, I'm just gonna throw it all out there. The reason I'm filming this and just kind of giving you guys an insight to the money aspect of this, it's not to be like, oh wow, look, I spent so much money on this stuff, but somebody at the shop the other day was talking about pinball, and we're like, oh yeah, you know, they're like $1,000, and I'm like, no, like you could probably get an old electromechanical one for that much, but yeah, the new ones are way more expensive than that. So you know, this is an informational thing, not a me being like, I got all this money. All right, first on the lineup, we've got Monster Bash. We bought this from a guy that had it listed on Pinside locally. We paid $10,500 for this bad boy. Now, this is the special edition, you know, it's got some extra stuff in here. It's the nicer version, but you know, it's expensive. We also bought this during peak COVID time, so it was even more expensive. I'm not really sure what these run for used right now, but that's, you know, in like 2021, that's what we paid for this guy. This one we bought last year. We got it brand new from our distributor. This is also a Chicago gaming machine, also special edition. This one we got at MSRP for $8,000. All right, so Guardians of the Galaxy we got off of Facebook Marketplace. Somebody actually reached out to us about it. They had this one and a Star Wars, and we paid $4,500 a piece for those. You know, they were looking to get rid of it, both of them actually. So we ended up getting those, although Star Wars is not here. It's broken in my garage, so we're not really going to talk about that one. But yeah, $4,500 for Guardians. Also, this was before the Stern machines came with this Insider Connect, so we did end up buying this piece that allows you to do that on this machine. That was an additional $200. So that's, you know, more money into this game. Next up, we've got the Mandalorian. This one is a premium edition. All right, so, you know, we've got your little Grogu in the background. Also on the, it's kind of hard to see because of the reflection, but on the Pro edition of this game, you can kind of see without the reflection, there's like a little Mandalorian head. So basically what happens is you have to shoot the ball through here, and then the head kind of leans up and you play the ball through that. The Pro edition does not have that. So yeah, that's cool. It was extra dollars, also has, you know, metal rails and some extra bits that the Pro does not have. Then we've got Foo Fighters. This one is also a premium edition because it's got extra stuff, notably being this alien guy here. You know, we're not like huge Foo Fighters fans here or anything, but this game is actually really cool. It's very like Attack on Mars-esque. You know, it's like Saturday morning cartoon alien story, less about Foo Fighters and more about that. Yeah, so that one was, you know, $8,699 if you want to be exact with that. It was expensive. TMNT, this one is a Pro, but I don't remember what all the extra stuff on the premiums of this one is, but I don't have them, so it doesn't matter. But this one was right around $6,000 for Turtles. All right, we've also got an Avengers. This one is also a premium edition. It's got some extra stuff, most notably being this little loop-de-loop here. It's hard to see because of the reflection, but you know, there's extra stuff in here. It's much nicer than the Pro, so we opted for the upgraded version of that. That was, you know, right around $9,000 for this guy. And then last, this is the latest one that we bought. This one came from a guy in the local pinball groups that he was getting rid of this one in order to get something else. Our beautiful, beautiful Labyrinth machine. This one we paid $10,500 for. So it's got like the extra topper. It did come with an extra back glass. It's got like beautiful David Bowie on it. But yeah, this one and Monster Bash are the most expensive ones that we got. This one does have quite a few upgrades too. You know, it's got this thing. I've never seen Labyrinth. Please don't come for me. But you know, this thing is really cool. And this company, Barrels of Fun, this is the first pinball machine that they've ever made. So it's a hard one to get. They only produced like 1,100 of these machines as well. So there you go. That's my pinball lineup. And the total of that comes out to like $66,199. So fun fact, that's how much money in pinball that I have sitting in just this one building. That doesn't include all the random stuff in my garage and my warehouse. Like I said, we're not going to talk about that because they're not here and it's not relevant to this video currently because I have way more money in pinball than that, but it's fine. It feels bad to talk about. So yeah, pinball pinball's expensive. It's an expensive hobby to have and a really expensive business to be in. Not only are you spending the initial cost on the machines, but you're also gonna have to spend money on maintenance. Now, if you have these for home use, obviously they're not gonna get as much wear and tear as one at an actual arcade is getting, especially, you know, and even if you're using quarters and tokens, you might not get quite as much wear, you know, I don't know, depending on what your traffic is like. We're a free play arcade, you know, you pay 10 bucks at the door, you can play as much as you want until you decide that you want to leave. So these things, when we're open, are getting constant play because you're not having to feed another dollar into it every time your ball drains, you know? So there's a lot of moving parts and stuff that can break in there because there's a small metal ball in there just hitting every surface of the inside of this machine. So, you know, they get some wear and tear. So we do have to spend quite a bit on maintenance. You know, there's parts that break. We're doing a lot of flipper rebuilds. You know, we got to buy parts for that. Sometimes, you know, there's other parts that go out, coils, whatever. That's not super often, but it does happen. So probably the thing that we have to replace the most is going to be, you know, the bands here. So, you know, they're on the flippers. We've got, you know, these rubbers here, you can kind of see in there. On the flippers, we do use super bands here, which are more expensive than your typical ones, but they last a lot longer for us. I know people really like Titans a lot, but I just didn't, I don't know. They don't last as long for us as the super bands do, but, you know, I'm spending quite a bit of money on maintenance between Marco's Specialties and Pinball Life. In the last year, I checked, I've spent like $1,300 on pinball parts alone. That's, you know, that doesn't even include any of the rest of this and other, you know, any other places that I bought pinball parts from. Like I said, most of what we're buying is from Marco's Specialties, but, you know, it's an expensive hobby to have. So there you go. I spend a lot of money on pinball, and if you're gonna get into this hobby, just be aware that it's gonna cost a lot of money. So this is our pinball maintenance box. I am not the one who's primarily working on these, but, you know, I'll show you what all our kit consists of. You know, like I said, we have to replace the rubbers quite often. We've got just, these are some Titans. I know people really like these, but they're not my first choice. We typically go for the super bands. We got a bunch of different colors for all of our colors of machines. Wow. You know, there's some extra coils for various games. We've got Novus 2, which, you know, is what we primarily use to clean the playfields. Because, you know, imagine maintaining your pinballs. No, this is important because if you have pinball machines, you have to clean the playfields and clean your balls. You know, it's a big metal ball in the machine, sometimes up to like 4 or 5 at a time, depending on what game, what kind of multi-balls you're getting. And they're in there banging everything around, creating a lot of dust, and your playfield gets kind of crusty, gets dirty. You have to clean them. The ball is not going to roll around as well if your machine gets gross. And maintain your pinballs. Clean your balls, clean your playfield. Novus 2 is your friend, and so is a microfiber cloth. And also, so is the pin snake. Shout out to the people that made this. It's really handy for getting into, turn that around. You know, all these little like parts, you know, down the side where it's not quite as easy to get your hands in there, and like, you know, all these little nooks and crannies back here. But you gotta maintain these things, like just clean your pinballs. Clean your consoles, clean your games, clean your friggin' pinball machines. Anyway, back to the box. We've got, you know, a bunch of leaf switches. There's some ton of flipper rebuild kits, mostly for Stern machines. Feels like a Stern ad at this point because that's what most of my machines are, but you know, not sponsored. Stern, please sponsor me if you want to. You know, I would love it. Yeah, you know, we got more rubbers. There's, let's see, parts that break within your flippers. You know, these little plastic sleeves get kind of janky sometimes and you need to replace them. The coil stops, also this part, you know, gets banged on and eventually will come loose from the metal. It'll be like wiggling around in there and then your flippers don't want to work. So these have to be replaced, you know, relatively often in a place that gets a lot of play. There's other stuff in here, like the, you know, the armatures. The plastic piece in here gets worn down and it breaks, so you have to replace this whole piece as well. And, you know, there's plenty of other things that need to be done in the pinball machines, but that's the main thing that we're having to do on the reg, so. All right, guys, that's all the yapping that I have in me for today. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe you want to buy a pinball machine now. You know, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to just stick to going to your local arcade. Let me know if you learned something, if you have some pinball, if you want some pinball. Comment, let me know about it. Make sure you like, hit the bell, subscribe, share, do all of those YouTube things that the YouTubers say to do. And most importantly, stay rad.
The paper, the power? No, the other one.